How you guys doing? Welcome to this month's webinar. Today we're going to be doing a Q&A with Dr. Shayne Morris, products and protocols. So any questions that you have regarding the products, how they work, how you can throw them together to make protocols, what our system is, since we do have that new line, it'd be a good time to reach out to the man who made them, right, and get those answers. Any questions that you put into our chat there, like go ahead and put as many as you can. In fact, we actually encourage you because we actually love to do these. Because if Shayne can't get to it on the call today, we'll still be able to get you these through your rep. We'll be able to send you that. So he'll be going to talk about the products and the protocols, but make sure to stay to the end. We do have an announcement that's pretty awesome. In fact, I don't think ever since I've been here that we've done something as cool as that. So stay tuned at the end for Shayne's announcement. But I'm going to send it over to Shayne and he's going to give you guys the gist.
Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited again to get with you. I think what I want to start off by saying is we have been introducing so many changes that it can seem a bit overwhelming. In fact, there may be perhaps some of you thinking, okay, we've got name changes. There's been some product changes. There's clearly been, organizational and corporate changes. I want to take a moment to really ingratiate that we appreciate that. And as we navigate this forward, our goal in the end is to bring to you guys the absolute best products that are anywhere available on the market, and coupled with the future of personalizing these products, the future of getting certain types of tests done, coordinating with whether it's muscle testing or DNA testing, microbiome testing, and that list can continue on and on and on. Because in the last decade, we've spent our entire time really digging into and doing what we would consider observational clinical studies. And not to deviate from this conversation too far, but we've even gone so far as to create patents for many of the products that I'm going to be talking a little bit about today, or at least referring to, as well as we're now doing peer-reviewed publications based on what these products are doing. So we're not just learning these things from our own internal resources. We're reaching out and involving other academics to help validate the way in which these products work, their mechanisms, and indeed their clinical benefits as we continue to protocol and create products for our clinicians. And we really do want to bring this to the next level. We have utmost respect for the legacy and the medicinal history that we have with natural products. But the world is changing, and we are using these to greater effect on our current challenges, which continue to just increase year after year. Our immune issues, our metabolic issues, our toxic issues. These things are a growing trend, not a shrinking trend. And therefore, we need tools, because for example, there is absolutely no way that we can remove plastics from our environment. We can't remove plastics from our body that easy unless we do the right thing. And there's no way to avoid plastics anymore. No matter where you go, no matter how clean you are, no matter what you're doing, we are finding plastics in everything, every people, every animal, every body of water, and so on and so forth. And they've gone from microplastics to nanoplastics, which makes them even more and more difficult to track down. Therefore, how do we address these types of issues? This is what we've been working on. You've heard me many times talk about the microbiota, probiotics, prebiotics. And now I want you to think of them as well beyond gut health. These things are being used and making a difference in every body system. And when you couple that with the herbs, the nutrients, the micronutrients, the plant compounds, other animal compounds in many cases, and again, these are things we're using in our formulations to bring to you guys really what is going to be the future. There's no question about it. We've the work we're doing, the work that the globe is doing. I mean, these things are being embraced by every country and every continent are now looking at the kinds of things that we have at our toolbox to change the trajectory of people's health. This idea of westernized living has been in many ways a damaging lifestyle to us as biological beings that need a lot of natural interactions. However, these changes then can help us reverse these trends both at the family level, the clinic level, the family level, and even the community level, bit by bit. So that's where I want to start. So what we've done is, as a company, I think I've mentioned to you guys, where everything is settled. We're moving forward. SFI is now Alimentum and SFI. These are both together. There's no separation. We still have all of our research branch, which is called Nutribiome. We've been and maintained a very amazing staff of scientists and marketing, sales, finance, all of the great people that have been on this journey. So our key staff now has been with us for anywhere from 16 to 10 years. So we really have a committed small corporation group that is super excited about where we're headed. And at this point, they're very, very wise. So it's amazing that we can bring all this to you guys efficiently and with a lot of wisdom. And many of us that, like myself, who've been with Systemic for 16 years, I'm still sitting on over 30 years of doing just this. So this is really exciting, and we have others that bring that to the table. Now to the products. So as you all well know, we have the Systemic line and the Alimentum line, and these are completely complementary, congruent. However, they bring a very different element to the table. They in fact together create a much more effective and clinically powerful tool, because one comes from the microbiota as well as personalized nutrition, utilizing many, many plants, many vitamins, minerals, etc., based on what we've learned about human cells, human cellular organisms like mitochondria and Golgi and membranes. And those of you on this call that have been here for a while are familiar with what we used to call the cellular formulas, and they're slowly evolving into these genic formulas. And the changes, I want to highlight that some of the changes taking place are not only necessary for the clinical efficacy, but I don't want anybody to panic to say, okay, I've noticed that 2 or 3 ingredients have changed in methylgenic that were in Moore's. Why are they gone and where do they go? Let me address that briefly. When we were going through this work we were doing on the clinical side, and we were finding that we needed to make adjustments to the formulas based on what we've learned in the last 10 years over and over again, from help from the clinicians like yourself, as well as researchers saying, okay, we're seeing a huge change in certain clinical outcomes based on dosing or the type of ingredients, whether it be a methylcobalamin or a methyl B12 versus adenosylcobalamin, or opposed to copper versus zinc. And all of this was compiled over the last decade to make these subtle but important changes. And if we did have to remove an ingredient from methylgenic or Moore's to create methylgenic, we then use that ingredient where it became more appropriate. So for example, an ingredient might have left methylgenic and become part of energenic, which used to be e-energy. There was a little bit of a shuffling, but that's because the ingredients were exerting more of an impact on that formulation than they were in the formulation prior. And to be clear, we've already made, again, another round of subtle changes to these formulas based on our recent findings from clinicians and clinical feedback. So these are what we want to consider the foremost and most proactively progressive formulas for human cells, human health that you're ever going to come across, which is why you will never see them become completely static. There'll always be a core set of ingredients that are amazing and have remained amazing. However, we are making these better as we go, without a doubt. And all of this genomics revolution has helped us do some of that work. That's the changes you're seeing in the formulations. If you guys end up having questions or concerns, and I'm going to jump on a question real quick because it happened to pop right at me. Is liquid Moors going away? Liquid Moors is going to become liquid methylgenic. And that's true. That's going to be true for a lot of the cellulars. We're going to start creating the liquids along with the capsules so that we can still maintain the various dosing capabilities from a both liquid and a capsule. And we're updating these consistently and based on clinical feedback, not simply just awareness of formulation uses, but literally based on what we're seeing in the clinical side of things. That's what I want to set you at ease and help you realize that these improvements from the cellulars to the genics is incredibly powerful. And it's going to you're really going to start noticing a huge difference as we create more of these and start launching these into our inventory. We're already seeing it now. In addition to those kinds of changes, we've made dosing changes. We've upped certain ingredients that have shown amazing benefits. For example, on a what we call an epigenic path, we were not seeing all the epigenic markers, which are, to clarify briefly, epigenics is a process where we turn the switches on and off on our genes. So your genes are a static bit of you. You all have your chromosomes that then make up who you are, called your phenotype, your hair, your skin, your eyes, your height, your bone structure. These are all dictated by your genetic code. However, what we consider an epigenetic modification of that code is the switches that turn genes on and off. And that's what allows us to be ever so different, meaning that your children might be a lot like you, but they have these differences between you and mom and dad. And these are epigenetic switches. A lot of what's been done in our world is all about methylation cycles, sulfation cycles, the various degrees of nutrients that provide the methyl tetrahydrofolate, the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, or the various B12 compounds like adenosylcobalamin and methylcobalamin. And then you go further into betaine or trimethylglycine. These are all designed to provide the tools to help your body navigate what we call epigenetics. However, these are not the tools that help the body make what we call decisions or the blueprints to make these switches. And yet there is a large body of data that's so new, it's within the last few years, that identifies really amazing, mostly plant compounds that help us control a methylation pattern that is the healthier pattern compared to what toxins do. What we know that plastics turn genes off and other genes on that are very detrimental to us. These phytoestrogens or xenoestrogens, toxicants, endocrine disruptors, they turn genes on and off that create havoc, especially in younger people or people going through puberty, etc. These are epigenetic compounds that are extremely dangerous and have been plaguing our industrial society for many, many decades. We need to reverse all these things. And I couldn't do it with the original cellulars. So what you're going to see coming out soon is something called epigenic, and it fills that gap. And I wanted to tell you that story because that's the type of thing we're doing to support something like methylgenic, or what used to be Moors, energenic, which used to be e-energy. There is now going to be an additional very powerful tool called epigenic that really fills the gap between those two kinds of products. And that's being done throughout the genic line that I didn't have an opportunity to do with the cellular line because I launched that line in 2011, 12, 13, 14. So it had become dated based on the current knowledge of what we know. And that's really the impetus for the changes. And I just wanted you guys to feel comfortable with that and to know that we are improving these things on a weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, and so on basis. These are never going to stop becoming better and better and better. Now you partner that with all of the systemic formulas, and then finally with the Alimentum biomic formulas, which used to be the MyBiome line. And now you have a toolkit that is unprecedented, unavailable anywhere else in the industry. And if we just take a moment and break down what went into the Alimentum biomic line, because as you all know, I've been very passionate, very excited about the probiotics, extremely excited about the prebiotics, to the extent that we've been sequencing stool, sequencing skin, sequencing oral, vaginal biomes for many, many years. I mean, this started in 2009, so over a decade, to try and understand the difference between a healthy biome and an unhealthy biome. And we're not alone on that journey. There are many academic groups that have really turned the information in this world upside down, because it is the missing ingredient. The microbiome is the missing organ in our body that we need to address. And it has the ability from a protocoling nature to transform the efficacy of the genic formulas and the herbal formulas of Systemic's legacy line. Without the microbiome, it could take a lot longer and be a lot less effective to get patients well when you don't have these organisms that we used to have in spades. We used to be 14 times more complicated. Adding these things back and adding the food that feeds them, otherwise known as a superfood, this is transforming how protocoling is becoming more effective. And that's an incredible realization. You guys have heard me talk about it before. I don't want to go down that path too far. However, what we've seen both in research and in our own research is incredible. The way the body systems that the microbiome influences are the same body systems that we have herbal formulas for, that we have nutrients for, in all the genic lines. There is what we consider a gut, brain, gut, lung, gut, kidney, gut, liver, gut, skin, gut, bone, gut, cardiovascular, and gut, urogenital, gut hormone. I could go on and on. They reach out and touch every part of our body. And they are in pretty much every part of our body. So these things are a tool. And what makes ours special, because all of you have heard about probiotics for many decades. I've been researching probiotics since the early 90s, late 80s, in fact. And back then, they were all derived from what we call fermented foods. We had no ability to harvest probiotics from the human organism. So back then it was the dairy industry, cheese, brewery, other fermented food industries, kombucha, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, or simply from the earth, soil-based organisms. They've all been around that long commercially, not very many of them, mind you, but this has always been you've always had the ability to get some of these. Sometimes we had to get them from Japan, other times from South America based on the origin, and no one was really that excited about probiotics back then, even though they had been used as far back as 1909 by a couple of doctors really, really far back. And if you can go all the way back to the old Chinese yellow soup, which was a form of eating your own feces to help get people well, that was a thing. But even in 1909, Dr. Kendall was using them to try to understand what was going on when he was noticing people that were living off of fermented foods tended to have a much greater outcome when it came to pathogen exposure, or fasting when they had to go through fasting phases because they lived in the mountains. So there's this impact that was identified many, many, many decades ago. However, we didn't understand it until now. So what do we understand? We understand because it affects and influences every body system. And I'm going to name a few because this is super important as we get to the clinical side, the protocoling piece. When you think about metabolic issues, we're going to protocol for a metabolism. Well, in our case, we have things like the metabo shakes, where we want to control a high density nutrient, low caloric, higher protein, good fats, all the vitamins, so we don't trigger a lot of glycemic response. That's one way that we've been approaching it. We had something called sinulin, now called glucogenic, and these are herbal products that help us manage this insulin response, the pancreatic output, as well as the glucose transporters to the mitochondria. So we're using these really targeted mechanistic herbs to help us control metabolic issues. And then on the other side, we can alter by using more collagen, driving up ratios of protein and fats to other simple carbs. And then we can bring in things like the Terra superfoods to drive up complex carbs that, again, will not trigger glycemic responses. That's been our approach over the years. When you look at how the microbiota influences it, what I can tell you in the forthcoming formulas called metabobiomic and metabo superfood, these are products that also influence things like GLP-1. And that's been all the rage when it comes to things like Ozempic. There's a natural way to do this, and it really lives in things like prebiotics and probiotics. And in other studies, you can literally drive metabolism up by just using prebiotics and probiotics, and then we have the additional tools. So there's one area. Cardiovascular is intimately linked to the microbiota. There, people that have an increased cardiovascular risk also have what we call a dysbiotic microbiome. And when that starts to shift using the tools we have, you can literally start to drop the blood markers of cardiovascular risk, and cardiovascular health starts to return. And I can give you an example of that in kidney, liver, especially liver because of detoxification, bone health, and I can go on and on. So really what I want to emphasize the most, because I think what we'll do in the future is we'll tackle a single body system at a time in each of our webinars forthcoming. And we will go through in more detail the protocoling. But in this moment, I just wanted to set the tone that what we're bringing to you are these amazingly novel and proprietary, and when I say proprietary, I'm going to get into that in a second, probiotics and prebiotics, as they get partnered with the genic cellular line, as well as the systemic original line that my grandfather created. When you think about using all those tools in a very focused, personal way, the transformation is extraordinary. There's an extraordinary transformation for the clinician and for the patient, and we can help guide many of you through all of this information. I mean, a lot of Matt, who's on this call, all the other sales reps, they are intimately involved in understanding these products, these protocols, helping us with the clinician side of the journey, so that you have now tools, and we're all humans. We are willing to be there. You're not going to get an AI voice. You're not going to get, sent through a series of we don't knows. We're here to do this. And we also have Jack Tips, who's been working feverishly to help guide practitioners through some of these new protocols and new products, because it's a lot to digest. Give it a little time, let us help, and we're going to make this amazing for each and every one of our practitioners. So why do I say proprietary when it comes to the probiotics? The reason I say that is because I alluded to this earlier, but most probiotics are considered a fermented probiotic, meaning that it came from some level of human product or human food product that we've fermented. And they're fantastic, by the way. We use those in our formulas. These are considered industrial or fermented food type organisms. We can find them in kombuchas and yogurts and kefirs and so on. And they have amazing properties. And these properties are well characterized properties where these probiotics can help stimulate metabolic benefits, hormone benefits, fertility benefits. They have all of these amazing attributes. So we use them. However, they're transient. They're what's considered an organism that has beneficial metabolites, beneficial interactions with your microbiota, and the ability to sometimes metabolize food that we eat, the good food, and allow the bugs in our gut to benefit from that metabolism. And so from that, we then looked at the human based on the Human Microbiome Project and started looking at, and we used academia as a guide, by the way, looking at organisms that are what we call commensal or symbiotic organisms that take up residency in the body. And I know that you've really probably heard me talk about that, so I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. However, perhaps the most important aspect of that, these are organisms that we've lost over time. We've lost based on our overuse of antibiotics, overexposure to toxins, lifestyles that no longer expose us to nature, to animals, to foods that come right out of the ground onto our plate. Many of these and many other concepts, these have really reduced our ability to maintain these organisms. So we want to bring them back. And in order to do that, we then started creating our own probiotics. And so in every one of these formulas, you'll see these organisms that are meant to be in us, and they have a huge benefit to us. In fact, there's something called probiotic hunters that are currently traveling the globe looking for some of these organisms. And I wouldn't be surprised, because it's already happening, where some of these organisms are they're turning them into a drug to get them back into, let's say, an infant that is missing them. For example, one key example of that is Bifidobacterium infantis is an organism. It's one of the first organisms that moms give to their babies. Well, unfortunately, in industrialized nations, first world countries, Bifidobacterium infantis has been lost from mothers. And so many mothers are not passing that organism to their baby. And then that in any females' babies don't pass that on to their babies. And now we're trying to reintroduce that into the human female population so that babies start getting it again. And why do we care? Because that organism is one of the keystone organisms to help babies grow and build a microbiome just from breast milk. And because of that, a lot of babies aren't metabolizing breast milk like they should anymore if these organisms aren't present. And that's true from birth all the way into geriatric ages, where the microbiome even shrinks more because we think that feeding them simple foods is a good idea. It's absolutely not. They need to be eating as complex and diverse foods as any other time in their life to maintain these microbiota. Therefore, we are introducing these probiotics and prebiotics to help bring back what used to be a healthy microbiome. And I won't get into it today, but your organisms in your gut are the first organ that transforms everything you eat, every medicine, every medicinal herb, every vitamin, mineral, and so on. That is the first organ that either transforms it, eliminates it, attacks any toxins or incoming food that doesn't want to be metabolized or shouldn't be metabolized. These organisms are our best defense against many of the things that we now currently face. And I'm going to bring up a little slide for you to kind of summarize this. So I should have shown you guys this earlier, but we've been talking about products and protocols, the innovative products beyond others' reach. And that's a bold statement. And I made that bold statement because at least on the prebiotic and the probiotic side, we are absolutely innovative. There is nothing else like our work out there yet. Some researchers are certainly working on this as diligently as we are, and it's taken us 10 years, or over 10 years. So it's not a trivial process. We are, and I mentioned this, but we are building systems to simplify this. We're building we call it internally, and I'm fairly confident that it'll be used in what you guys see, but we're building these systems or this roadmap to help all of the practitioners use these tools in a way where we've combined certain formulations for certain protocols that you can then just give them to your patients. You all remember our packages. It's very similar to the packages, but now we can combine these novel products with the genics and the systemics to build out these, what we call a system. And you can get your patients on a system without having to go through 60 hours of education. So that's one of the goals that we're building a roadmap to help build your practice from as well. And we really are bridging the traditional with the future. Everything we do is embracing where we know health belongs. We know health from our hunter-gatherer origins all the way till now. We know what that looks like in many ways, not in all ways, but in many ways. And that's one of the drivers behind these products, that we know the bugs that we want to bring back. We know a lot of the foods these bugs eat that we want to bring back. And that's part of this journey. And then to simplify it again for you guys, we have created more documents like these white papers, as well as systems that we'll be introducing similar to the old TCD packages that we had, with huge upgrades, as I hope you all understand from these product introductions. The upgrades will be phenomenal. And these systems will make it much easier for you to navigate a lot of this complexity. So what are the protocoling issues? Because we want to take on the cause, right? We hear that, we use that term a lot in clinical vernacular, clinical speak, where we want to go to the root cause. We don't want to always be dealing with the symptom. And oftentimes we need to manage the symptom before we can get to the cause. That's completely understandable. However, the cause, as I mentioned, and I'll reiterate, for inflammation, detoxification, microbiome extinction, autoimmune, and the rise of these pathogens, the cause of these, although it's multifactorial, complex, the etiology isn't simple, we've taken a look at each and every one of these in a deeper way. And when you combine the microbiome system with the cellular systems, with the traditional medicine systems, you're now really getting at the causes. You're no longer just adding nutrients back to someone that might be nutrient deficient. That's critical, but that doesn't necessarily mean why are they nutrient deficient. There are actually reasons why people are nutrient deficient, and it may have nothing to do with the fact that they're not taking nutrients, because we all uptake nutrients, but without other systems working, you can feed someone B12 all day long, and that does not diminish their B12 anemia because of other factors like a destroyed mucous membrane in the stomach, where they don't produce the proteins that bind B12. So it literally goes all the way through them. And then they end up having to take shots of B12 in their gluteus maximus. We want to get to the underlying causes. And my point here is to say that we've spent a lot of time understanding these underlying causes so that we can address things like inflammation, proper detoxification. A lot's been learned since we started the journey of detoxification many, many years ago. Microbiome extinction, that's something that we've tackled recently. Autoimmune, always an issue. However, the knowledge base has expanded dramatically with all of these eyes on this problem. We've learned from many, many people globally about how to start addressing autoimmune in new ways. And that's part of our journey. Rise of pathogens, always an issue, especially when you take the bullet points above rise of pathogens. Pathogens are they're actually not that competitive in the scheme of how our body works when it's healthy. But when you remove these barriers, we're now seeing more opportunity for pathogens to become problematic because we've removed so many barriers. We're in a constant state of inflammation. We're riddled with toxins. We've ruined our first barrier, which is the microbiome. Therefore, we've created an opportunity to see a rise in these pathogens, a rise in these either living or non-living pathogenic issues. So this is the protocoling piece where we can start to supply not only information, but the products to address these within the context of the modern clinicians really database or patient database, because I know it's been challenging for them. I wanted to point out just briefly, you guys, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time here, but on the side of each bottle, we've started to identify in 4 different systems how you can relate to some of these new products, because they are all new names. So there's icons, and icons can be related to neurological, immunological, gut health, and so on. So on the side of each Alimentum bottle, you can start to get a sense of how these are being paired with other formulations, and that really will become more clear as we design systems and start teaching you on systems. That's going to be an important facet of this. So I just wanted to show you this to give you the first introduction. It's not a great slide, but it's introduction to how we're trying to simplify our systems for you using visual cues. Before I go on, though, I want to jump into a couple of questions here. What's the best genic thyroid hyper and hypo? So there are some old formulas still that are still fantastic that we're using. Therefore, we still have to look at the thyroid, GF thyroid, because that's important. That's an important character in this world. We also start to want to up our selenium intake, and that would be methylgenic. We need to start increasing the cofactors that drive the enzymes to help us manage the thyroid, the T3, T4, all the thyroid hormones. They're one of the control points, or the limiting points, is actually the selenium-based enzymes. And then we have to be really careful with what we call TMI liquid or TMI pills, because that one, if you go too high or too low, we can actually exacerbate hyper or hypothyroid. Those can be used. They have to be used carefully. And then, of course, we want to get energenic back into play, because we need to have the mitochondria in the thyroid functioning properly. And then we move into the gut. So in order to give a better breakdown, we'll have a list of those products sent out to you guys. Right now, I'm just doing it right off the cuff. Is methylgenic the best product for high homocysteine, or maybe homocysteine TLR? It's sticking around, or both? So it's a great question. Right now, I have homocysteine still in stock. Many of the homocysteine components have been brought back into methylgenic, and others have been incorporated into the new epigenic. So before I bring homocysteine TLR back, most of those have been moved into methylgenic and what we call immunogenic. A little few, there's a little overlap in some of these, but methylgenic is the primary source of most of those ingredients. And then epigenic will be a huge partner to that regarding homocysteine, the methylation pathway, all the way through every shunt of the SAMe production to the BH4 and so on. These are all being built out in the methyl and the epi. And if we still find that we're missing a few things while we have homocysteine TLR, we will address those for you guys as we move forward. Full script, we get that one a lot. So we've checked into that, and I'm not sure when and how that's going to work out, because full script also happens to be really busy. And so that communication is pretty slow. I think ultimately, both the salespeople as well as the logistics people would love to have us providing on full script. In the meantime, however, what we're doing is upgrading somewhere near the end of the year, upgrading our portal and access for clients to do a more ease of and convenient shopping for the patients. Although that doesn't give you access to all the other types of products that FullScript does, we don't yet have a real good, I guess, a real good feel for how we're going to do the FullScript and navigate that, just because we've just really not been in a lot of communication with them, as they're busy, we're busy, and that's kind of where that lies. All right, are any of the new genic products unsafe for pregnancy or breastfeeding? That's a fantastic question. So I have a protocol for breastfeeding and for prenatal that tends to, we've used successfully for many, many years, and with slight deviations, but that protocol is this: methylgenic, energenic, what we call RPM, they'll become omegagenic. We then have immune biomic and immune superfood. Those have been the go-to. And then, I should add, we still have what we call spectra, which is the organic vitamins that will become vitagenic. Each of those is the protocol. If you need to add some additional support to a pregnant or breastfeeding person, I tend to go to additional probiotics and additional superfoods before looking at any of our more therapeutic herb-based genic formulas or herb-based systemic formulas. And the reason for that is there just is no pregnant and or breastfeeding data clinically for that group of people. So we try to tackle it with what we know is safe and effective. And on the superfoods, there are a lot of really important, safe plants in there that aren't necessarily going to deliver what we call a therapeutic or medicinal herb at a dose that we just don't understand what it's going to do. So again, to repeat that, we're going to do all the hard nutrients for methyl, vita, and energenics, and then we're going to add various probiotics, prebiotics, and the omega-3s. That's the go-to protocol for both prenatal, natal, and breastfeeding. And then we can modify that based on what's going on. And that's going to be clinician and patient dependent. Next, originally, were you going to get rid of the VRMs with Clear 1 and 2? What's the suggested protocol? I like this. These are great questions. So I never wanted to get rid of the VRMs. I really just wanted to get all of you guys testing and trying out the Clear 1 and Clear 2. And the reason for that is they're new to all of us in the sense that we haven't had them on the market for a very long time, but they're rich in history from the countries in which a lot of these formulations were derived. So there's a lot of work that came out of the most extensively parasitic, bacterial, viral ridden countries: Africa, South America, South Asia. These are where a lot of that science and or clinical information came out of to design Clear 1 and Clear 2. So they are on the more powerful end, and the dosing is higher than what VRM 1, 2, 3, and 4 used to be. And part of that is because many of you over the last few years were showing some diminished returns with the VRMs, right? We needed some, in many patients, something that a little more powerful. So here's my recommendation. I do combinations. So if it's bacteriological, I'll oftentimes do Clear 1 and 2 for sure, and then add either number 3 or VRM 4. If it's parasitic, I'll do Clear 1 and 2, and one of the VRMs, depending on the type of organism, whether it be 1, 2, 3, or 4, I will add that to the protocol. And what I've found as a most effective protocol from a time standpoint or a dosing standpoint is start with what the label says, 1 of each, because it is very, very powerful. And you can up that, though. There are people that can tolerate a higher dose, and oftentimes you have to get a lower dose as well. But regardless, at a minimum, we do 10 days. And what we're going to get to at the end of this is it's kind of fun to try and just measure some of the biological outcomes. So we do 10 days and we do a break, just maybe a day, and either the patient checks in with the clinician with a simple email saying, hey, I'm still feeling great. Can I move on? Yes. Then we do another 10 days. Then we do a third 10 days. And then we repeat that cycle, but no longer than 60 days without a much greater break. Also, what's really fun and very informative to do is at day 1, day 10, day 20, day 30 is to offer the Blu Poo pill, because that allows the transit time and the type of stool coming out, and you get some guidance as to, wow, they're still taking 3 days of poop, or their poop is coming through in 8 hours, which is too short or too long. And either one of those means we're not yet quite handling or managing this, even though we're just using the gut as a measuring stick. It's a very brilliant and important measuring stick that gives us insights into greater detail of what the body's actually doing, what the blood's doing, what the liver's doing, and so on. So it's fun to do, or it's important to do the Blu Poo pill before we start and at the intervals, the 10-day intervals, to manage at least all these transit, because some of the ingredients in Clear One, these ingredients they stimulate the motor migration complex so that we're trying to keep things moving. If we don't keep these moving, we're not accomplishing the detoxification elimination phase, right? That phase needs to be moving. Otherwise, we're accumulating toxins. We might be killing things, but they're starting to deteriorate and release toxins internally. We have to keep essentially the lymph and the gut moving simultaneously. So that's the protocol for that. What's the difference between Derma Serum and Derma Eubiomic? Great question. So Derma Serum, so they're both skin-based probiotics and prebiotics. In many ways, we call that a synbiotic. Derma Serum is a topical synbiotic. So it contains topical organisms, ones that grow on the skin, and it's in a natural base of what we call a prebiotic. It's very similar to the sebum and some of the other oils and liquids your skin produces to feed your microbiota. You're covered in it. I'm going to show my arm here. We're covered in organisms, and they live off of these secretions that our bodies secrete. That's what they are living off of. And so Derma Serum is both a combination of the prebiotic, or the food they eat, as well as some of the organisms that are healthy on our skin to displace unhealthy organisms. And I typically use the Derma Serum in combination with what we call the skin virome. And the skin virome targets organisms that live on the skin that tend to be problematic. And the name of that organism is called Cutibacterium acnes. It tends to be problematic when it overgrows on our skin, creating rashes and potential boils, acne, and so on. It's when it grows too aggressively, this is where we see a lot of the skin inflammation that we get, and the immune system gets brought into play. Derma Eubiomic is internal, so that's an inside-out skin product. So you're taking it orally, it's colonizing our intestines, but the messages that it sends through the immune system, mainly through the immune system, is messages to the skin. These organisms have been studied for their response to healthier skin. Some were discovered because they're found in people that have healthy skin. Others were discovered because as they were added to as a probiotic, or as they're added to people with skin inflammation or skin disruption, these organisms worked from the inside outwards. And that's a really common, that used to be a really novel concept, that the gut was affecting the skin. That's the gut-skin axis. And it isn't simply our gut, it's the microbiota gut-skin axis. And now that's been much more extensively studied, and it's much more well understood and accepted that when you start to influence a healthy microbiota and a healthy gut, the impact on the skin is dramatic, and that's been shown over and over. And that could be as things as simple as helping to seal some of the leaky gut junctions, some of the tight junctions, or a lot of the molecules that are produced by the bugs transit and really signal to the immune system in the skin to calm down from something that has irritated it. It could be something as simple as an herbal interaction from, or grass, some allergen, or some organism that's what we call dysbiosis of the skin, which is very similar to dysbiosis of the gut. These things are made worse when the immune system starts misbehaving, and there is a distinct communication between the gut and the skin immune system. And many of us don't really think about this, but our largest immune system is, of course, the GI. There's another large one, really large one on our skin, because our skin is exposed to all the threats. There's a lung, and then there's a urogenital. Anything exposed to the world has an upgraded immune system, which also means that it can also be sent down the wrong path and become inflammatory if things aren't dealt with properly. Those immune systems are ready and poised, but if they're not healthy, they can go sideways on you and create an immune reaction that you don't want. And that's why we try to manage those with healthy organisms and healthy messaging between these systems from the gut to skin axis. That's why. So that's the inside out, whereas the derma is outside in, is the concept. So protocoling of GLP-1, yes, you will get more of that. Protocoling of GLP-1, I'm putting that off for just a bit longer because we have a probiotic and a superfood coming out that targets that part of our physiology, and that is the metabolic system. So these are unique probiotics and unique prebiotics that are designed not only around that part of our metabolism, but even others. And that's going to be a really fun one. When it launches, you'll get a lot more information on that one. Sorry to keep that one so short. What are the new remedies inside the TCM packages since Moore's and others are being replaced? So the new packaging, the new roadmap with our combination packages to help simplify the clinician's world, it's going to be a combination of the cellular replacements with the genetics, with the probiotics and prebiotics, so the superfoods and the Alimentum prebiotics, and then, of course, some of the systemic formulas. So it'll be an expanded version of what you recall in the TCM, with some of these extremely powerful tools coming out of the superfood and the probiotic world, as well as the changed formulas like methylgenic, epigenic, and so on. So the upgraded cellulars, as well as the new introduction of the probiotics and superfoods. That's what you're going to see in the new packages. And again, we've spent a lot more time, so all of the salespeople and everybody can educate quite a bit on these fun things. Oh, the product info handouts. I'm glad you like those. Please use those. I know they're extremely dense, but that's cool because they can be broken down into simple conversations, or they can be expanded into much more complex or in-depth conversations, depending on whether you're talking to a fellow practitioner, whether you're talking to a patient that is interested in medicine and so forth. So those are really important for us to keep producing for you. On the label of Hormone U Biomic, it says to refrigerate, but is that necessary to put them in there? Okay, so all of the biomics prefer refrigeration. One thing I can probably point out that is important for you guys to know, in this journey of creating these new probiotics, we've had to create new formulations that stabilize, and we call that Biome Protect, and it's in every capsule. So it gives us some level of protection from oxygen and moisture, and refrigeration adds to that. Now, outside of refrigeration, the stability is there, it's just not there as long. For example, if you're going to leave it at room temperature, let's say between 68 and 72 degrees, then that's room temp, and you're not gonna see a rapid decline in our organisms. However, if you take it in your car in the middle of summer and you leave it in your purse or on your seat, and you leave it there and it reaches 100 degrees, that's going to start to kill the organisms relatively quickly. How do you stabilize that? Refrigeration is the best, followed by room temp. And I never advise high humidity or high temps. That's lethal to these organisms. It makes them very unhappy. Never take them into an oxygen chamber. So if you ever want to get the oxygen chamber, don't take the probiotics in there, because these organisms live deep inside of us and they hate oxygen. That is their greatest enemy. So oxygen is enemy number one, followed by moisture, followed by temperature. So we've taken a lot of those precautions, but yes, be sensitive to the idea. If you're going to keep a bottle for very long, more than just your own protocol, or for a year, refrigeration is absolutely advised. If you're replenishing your inventory fairly frequently, then room temperature has been satisfactory. Lymphogenic. Can I get help those folks with lymphedema? Yeah, it's a combination of things. Lymphogenic is one part of that protocol. And without getting into too much, we've got a few other things that help on that protocol. In fact, we even have a staff member that had to go through that. So we will follow up on that. So take a note for Joanne that we need to follow up on that one. Controversy. Let's talk about the controversy. Lyme. There's so many of my clients with so many symptoms. Testing is non-existent. Yeah, you're right. It's very challenging, especially if it's latent. Well, accurate testing anyway. I need so much support for these clients. Anything on the way for them? Yes. In fact, that one is very controversial. And in fact, I was at a clinic a few years ago that specialized in those things, and talking to the clinicians that were there, because they weren't actually clients, they were on the medical side. And I was there doing some work and trying to understand the kinds of different patients that are coming in, the tests certainly, as well as managing symptoms. And in other ways, we know it has a complex origin, and in many ways that immune system is a central piece. So what I would say, Tammy, is reach back out, because without knowing more about each patient, because there's phases, let's call them phases of progression, because sometimes the testing is really, it doesn't show us anything, because the organisms themselves are either non-active, non-proliferative, but the immune system is still acting as though it's under threat. There are other times where the organisms are growing and the immune system is reacting, and you're getting a whole different set of symptoms, and or it's in a different level of evolution or trajectory in that sense. So it has to be a little bit broken down, and that alters the protocol in a slight way, not significantly, but does alter the protocol a little bit. Will all program systems be pre-packed into boxes like the TCD? Thank you. Yes, ultimately, absolutely yes. Once we have the system ready, we will probably offer it in bottles until the packages are then finished. And that is all in the work. So that will be coming. We ultimately want to get them all into sachets and into boxes. Absolutely, without question. What has been more beneficial for PCOS to lose weight? Okay, so that comes back to the metabolins coming, but it also comes back to some of our new genics, as well as some of the other biomic formulas. We've had a number of people go through our simple protocols, even without some of the formulas, with great success, because we have the hormone biomic, which brings a whole new level of benefit. The hormone, or the biocrine, what used to be the biocrine, but the hormone superfood, very important, along with our glucogenic, which used to be sinulin. We start adding these new systems or these new products, and we're getting even a better success on that. So indeed, we do have these protocols. And then when we circle back and look at the metabobiomic and the metabo superfood, we're bringing not only PCOS from a hormone perspective, and of course the insulin resistance involved in PCOS, we're bringing back that through the metabobiomic and the metabo superfood. So that's the kind of that'll tie it up for a lot of you. And then ultimately, I'll probably also add to that what we call detox eubiomic. We now have access to probiotics that help the body detox. That's really fun. One of them actually binds up heavy metals, and then we excrete the heavy metals in our feces, and it never gets into the blood. So there's really some fun things coming. Protocols for anemia. Yeah, depending on the kind of anemia. So I need to know a little bit more about that, but absolutely, there's various kinds of anemia. Some can be handled in a simple way through the vitamin mineral approach, others through the B12 folate pathways, the methylation pathways. But I would need to know a little bit more about that. And female versus male is important in that sense. I love answering these questions, you guys, but I am running out of time. I don't even know what time it is. See, I've already gone over my time. It's because I enjoy speaking to you guys, getting you guys up to speed with what we're up to. We just have so many exciting things to happen. Please spread the word, talk to your fellow practitioners. We want to start bringing this message out. We've spent a long time building it for you, so we most certainly want to bring more to you. And to begin that, to start any conversation with your fellow practitioners and your patients, we want you to join us for what we call Take the Blu Poo Challenge. So on Thursday, August 1st, you will learn more about the Blu Poo Challenge. You can invite practitioners, you can invite your patients and learn more and register here. This is a really fun way to introduce all of you to how important, not that you already don't know, but how important the GI tract is to our overall health, and how tracking our transit time and the type of poo that's coming out of people, right? The stool score, it becomes a great conversation. It leads into all the other health, the health that's regarding our thyroid, our brain, our gut, our liver, and so on. It really becomes a starting point for us, and it's fun. I mean, we've done it in small batches around here. Family members have done it. It's a great way to introduce people and drop the barriers of pooping. I mean, we all do it. It's not a secret, and yet we truly underestimate the importance of how long it takes for your entire GI tract, your alimentary canal, to process your food, because it needs to be understood. When you eat something, how long that transits before it empties into the toilet, that tells a story, as well as what it looks like when it enters the toilet. It tells a separate story. And those stories relate back to your health in a number of ways. And that's what we'll talk about on August 1st. So please use this QR code. And thank you so much for listening to me. I love talking to you all, and I am done.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. Obviously, there's a lot of people that did put some questions in there that are real. They're all really good questions, right? That's why there's a lot of nuances to health, right? So they take quite a while to answer some of these questions, right? Even before he was asking, for more information on that patient. And that's something I do want to get to you guys, is that we have reps, and you can get help with this stuff outside of webinars and the content that we're creating. You can still reach out to us directly. Like, I have a lot of clients that reach out to me asking me for protocols, right? And if I can't make a protocol, I have the resources to make them for you. So if you don't know how to protocol yet, you can still get protocols from me. And a lot of people learn that way because they see which protocols I've given them. They're like, oh, that makes sense. And they start kind of connecting the dots that way. You can also train with your rep. Like, I've done conference calls with patients and their, the practitioner and the patient, where we sit down and I train them on, what's going on, how would you use this in your practice, or how the patient should be taking it. You can do all that stuff with your rep, with all the protocoling, because I can train you guys on it, get you all, but keep showing up to these, we're going to make this a series. We'll keep doing these.
And I want to remind, sorry, Matt, I want to remind
Hey.
everybody that there is a familiar face that we also have on the clinical side, helping us clinically protocol, train, and a lot of things. Jack Tips is still an intimate part of our world. And so he's also absolutely at everybody's fingertips.
Mhm.
And he works with Matt, he works with me, works with the other reps, works with clinicians. So keep in mind too, that if Matt and I are really busy, we have Jack Tips, vice versa, and we communicate on a regular basis.
The point is we can always get you a protocol. Like, whether
Yeah.
or not you have this all memorized yet, obviously we'll train you, teach you how to fish, but we can always get you a protocol. And I know, these products are life changing. Like, no one else is doing this. These are bacterial species that you cannot get anywhere else. And you're gonna love the results that you're getting from these things. I personally hear it every single day about the results they're getting in their practice. And so it'd be fun to have your patients come on August 1st for the Blu Poo challenge, August 1st. Invite patients, right? Have a whole, have a bunch of your patients come to the office at the time that we're doing this, because we're going to send you an email about like registration and kind of the details that are going to be happening. So if you don't have your email, we can't get you the registration, or we have to get that. So if you can reach out to us, the email is info@systemicformulas.com, and we can add you to our email list. But like I said, if you have any questions that we haven't even talked about, or you just need anything, just reach out to us directly. You can even call us at it's the 1-800 number, so 1-800-445-4647, and just press 1. We'll get you to your rep. We'll help you out as best we can. But Shayne, do you have anything else to add before we?
No, no, just try to get as many people as possible, because not only will it help you in your clinic, what we're going to be learning about it will help you understand a lot of where we're headed down this path of systems and simplicity. And this happens to be one tool that creates a lot of information that helps us drive health into the greater system. So it should be a really fun challenge. And yeah, and you end up with Blu Poo in the end. So who doesn't want that?
Exactly. I'm going to be doing the challenge too, so I'll be doing it with you guys. But like I said, just reach out to us if you need anything, and we'll see you on the flip side. We'll probably keep in touch this week if you have any questions. Okay. Take care,
Thank
guys.
you. Cheers, everyone.